IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
कृपया ध्यान दीजिए, the language used on the podcast may not be fit for consumption. We warn you, tread carefully. But listen yaar, don't be so conservative. Namaste, welcome. It's Cyrus Says, and we've got a lovely guest, totally different topic. Haven't done it, I think, for a long time. The topic itself is not one topic, but it's basically to do with gender parity in some sort of way, which we'll come to. I better say the right things because Manisha Kapoor apparently is very strict on every issue in this realm. But before we get into that, a quick word. This is just me trying to help society in general. We are searching for a lovely gentleman called K.P. Gosavi. If you can find him, please direct him to us. We are also assisting the various people involved. We're not sure whether he represents the Narcotics Bureau of India, NAB, NCB, NBA, NRT, whatever it's called, or the CID, or Maharashtra Police, or Delhi Police, or just some police between Delhi and Mumbai, whether he's a tutor of police, he's a home detective, or house detective, whatever that means. We're trying to figure that out. So KP Gosavi, if you are there and if anyone knows your whereabouts, please write into Cyrus Says. We're here to help. Bring people together and try to understand his role in this drug bust case, which is still very unclear. So, Mr. Gosavi, if you can come forward, we'd like to have you on the show and have a conversation with you. You can even do it from Malaysia, not a problem.
Habits? Routines? How exactly do they help us get better? Well, to simplify it for you, tune in to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashton Doctor and I'm going to be here to help you get better daily with some simple, easy to do habits that you can easily adapt to your life. So tune in to the Habit Coach podcast from Monday to Friday because I believe that awesome lives start with awesome habits.
Let's now go straight to Manisha Kapoor. Manisha, welcome to the show. Sorry to keep you waiting for 1 minute of inane chatter that I do in the beginning. We do that simply because I don't have enough to talk about for 60 minutes. So 1 or 2 minutes I have to go somewhere else. Let me just start right at the beginning. You're laughing now. You won't be laughing at the end of the show. I can tell you that. I'm going to try my best. Manisha, I'm going to just also set up here that you are the Secretary General of the Advertising Standards Council of India, the ASCI. And this conversation is supposed to be on how we're trying to move, or rather you are trying to move, or maybe most people are trying to move, the gender imbalance or gender parity or gender portrayal, what is the right word, in advertising, television, film, OTTs, etc., which is fairly imbalanced in most cases, many cases, but there's also plenty of positive movement in the last 4 or 5 years also. I'm sure you'll throw some light on that. Manisha, in between, if you could tell us 3 jokes and some personal insights about your life growing up, and at least 5 people who you hate. Also, if you know where Mr. Gosavi is, and if he's in your house, this is the time to tell us everything. Because, this guy has to come forward. He's the key to a lot of things. I'm a little biased towards Shah Rukh Khan, as are most people that I know. But it would be nice if we could I think once this guy speaks, this whole story will entangle, so to speak. So
Yeah, I look forward to watching that conversation on your show, Cyrus.
yeah, but I'm just wondering whether he'll charge money. So far, no guests have. Manisha, please don't. Whatever you do. Should we just start? We'll start talking about you for a minute or two, and then we'll go into what you're doing. It sounds very heavy duty, and it is heavy duty. But let's go right back in time. How did Manisha Kapoor land up in the business? You obviously have been around doing lots of, I won't say brands, but you work with some very big names who I will not mention. So do you take us back to Bajaj, was it, when it all started? That I can mention. Bajaj
So I completed my education from Jamnalal Bajaj, and then as we used to say on campus, went across the street to the company. So I started working with Hindustan Diva. Did that for a few years, and then I was with
right.
Johnson & Johnson for a while. Sorry,
that Hindustan Lever hires a lot of people from Bajaj because of the proximity. It's not it's a possibility.
I don't think they hired too many people. I wish they did. I mean, I of course got in, as have a lot of people from Bajaj. But yeah, I don't think there was any disproportionate hiring just because we were across the street.
Okay, so how did that? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I started working there. I then so I worked there for about 4 years. Then went to J&J. I worked there for about 6 to 7 years. Post which I have largely been in the consulting space. So worked with a lot of brands across a lot of sectors on some very interesting project. Had a brief time that I actually set up a CSR consulting firm. So did a lot of not-for-profit projects, with people like UNICEF and ICICI Foundation, Pepsi, etc. So some very interesting projects there. I was, so when I was part of a consulting firm, actually, I came on to ASCI initially as part of a member of the Consumer Complaints Council, which is a council that...
Are we supposed to say ASCI? Why did you tell me? That sounds so much cooler. I've been saying ASCI. So I can say ASCI, right?
Yes, you can say ASCI. That's how most of us refer to it.
It sounds like Akshay Kumar's name. I wish you told me in the beginning. It's far more hip now. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So you want to
you have another 50 minutes to go through now with
I won't make a mistake. Everyone listening, see, you've done a beautiful thing here. ASCI is so popular that even they don't remember anything else we've talked about, ASCI is going to stay. ASCI is going to have like Pepsi or Coke sort of width for me. It's going to be one of the big names by the end of this show. So well done, you.
Thank you. I hope that comes true. So
we're in the communication business, and that's what we're doing. Sorry, I'm interrupting you too much.
No, that's fine. So that's how I got involved with ASCI in the beginning as part of the Consumer Complaints Council, which is a council that sits every week to look at complaints that come in. It's a council that has a very interesting composition. It has, of course, a few people from the industry who understand advertising, but also has a lot of non-industry people. So we have doctors, lawyers, researchers, so just people from different walks of life who are representing consumers in a sense. And then when any complaint comes in, we kind of discuss and debate the merits of the case, based on what the expert has said and what the advertiser has responded. And that council kind of makes its decision and its recommendation, which I'm happy to say that, in spite of being in that sense a self-regulatory voluntary compliance body, that we have over 97% compliance. So, most people will adhere to the ASCI recommendation. So that's how my association with ASCI started. And last year in September is when I took over ASCI in a full role. It's been a very fascinating and great journey since then.
So 2 questions stand out. First and foremost, J&J threw me. Then I realized it's Johnson & Johnson, one of the greatest brands that ever lived. I want to ask you, why do they have to have 2 Johnsons? Shouldn't it just be one? What is the story there? Are there 2 brothers or something? What is it? Why is it Johnson?
Yeah,
like Mahindra and Mahindra, for example.
Yeah, like Mahindra and Mahindra, Thompson and Thompson. So I guess there are several precedents to that. Yeah, but
it's a corporation with a huge ego. You're saying your name 3 or 4 times. It's a sense of greatness. But the second thing I wanted to ask you is that it almost sounds that you're altruistic, self-actualizative, if I can use that word. Part of your personality was already there. Generally, when you look at people, it's towards the latter years, especially in the Western cultures, they tend to become philanthropists and look at the bigger picture and look beyond just commerce and capital towards the end of their career. But you, right from the beginning, you seem to be have this instinct that I want to do things and right wrongs, so to speak, especially when it comes to the gender bias, etc. Would you say that was always there on your mind, even when you started back in the day when you crossed the street?
Yeah, so I think it's something which I've certainly learned along the way. A lot of it actually came from my work in Johnson & Johnson. I was handling categories that related to women. And I think it started with that work. But yeah, I think for me, work always needed to be meaningful to me. And I think that's really kind of what has shaped my career. I've had a very fluid career. I have not really, said this is point A to point B and that's how I need to get there. It's always been interesting opportunities that have presented themselves, and I've been kind of happy to take them on. Similar to what ASCI was, right? I mean, so it's, for me, it's about working with great people, working on interesting things, working on things that, I can feel proud of. So I think that's what's kind of guided me along the way. So
yeah, I was just trying to point out that the sensitivity issue generally at that stage in our lives is not seen by most of middle class India, the go-getters, people like yourself. It's not seen at that time. It's seen towards the end of their careers, if at all. But we won't go on to that. It's an immodest question to ask. I will not ask you that. We will move on to this entire, because I'm trying to just get an understanding of all these important points that you've set up here. First and foremost, we're looking at right now the fact that the entire industry, the communications industry, if that's the right word, media, in a general sense, has not portrayed women fairly. Is this fair to say?
So I would say that there is movement. And there is change. However, I think, in their own minds, and especially when it comes to advertising, because, that's the kind of, the study reflects advertising, rather than the entire media. I think that there's certainly women's own self-imaginations in their minds where they have reached their impressions and views about themselves and their lives are certainly today a little different and ahead of perhaps what advertising is depicting and showing. So I think it would not be fair to say that there is no movement and there has been no change. There certainly has been, but there is some bit of catching up to do as well.
So let's just stick with advertising. You've corrected me. Fair enough. When I was in advertising for a couple of years in the mid 90s, I think fairly safe to say it was male dominated, slightly chauvinistic. Would be fair to say that as well. So do you think the problem is also in advertising itself, not enough women representation, and then from there more empathy, sensitivity, understanding simple concepts or whatever they've come up with that men sometimes, like, we don't understand. I'm sure we don't understand. We don't intend to show a sort of imbalance or show one gender in one light and the other in another light. It's not intended to be that. But do you feel one of the problems is because there are not enough women in advertising, at least then?
Yeah, I think that is certainly, part of, the challenge that, there have not been enough women in the workspace itself, right? And again, that is something which is seeing, some movement and correction. But yes, I think that is part of the challenge that, the depictions intuitively come from a point of view that is perhaps much more male skewed than women skewed. So I think that certainly has its role to play. But like I said, I think the good news is that things are changing. I think the not so good news is that sometimes the more things change, the more they remain unchanged. So I think that is a part of, but I think we have to, not be frustrated at the pace of progress, so long as directionally it is there, and I think all of us have to do our bit to accelerate that change in whatever way we can.
All right. So let's, instead of just talking generally, since I don't have enough knowledge and I'm very scared, like I keep telling people, I have a very dominating female presence in my house. My mom, my wife, and my daughter. All three bully me. They all have the eyebrow effect when they talk to me. They raise the eyebrow like you're talking to an idiot and then reply. So I honestly feel that I should not be the guy taking the beating for all these ugly, horrible, chauvinistic men. I'm one of the beaten men. So it's really unfair that I'm doing this program, but we'll do it anyway. So right at the top of all this, there's a stereotype inventory that ads seem to regularly borrow from. This is the research we have. I just want to go through some of these points with you. Maybe you can understand. We can understand what's going on. Very often, none of us think about it. We don't think from the perspective that you perhaps will make us understand when you illustrate a couple of examples. I think that's half the problem, really. I don't think all men are that bad. I think we just don't understand. It's like, I've said this before 200 times, but I didn't know about female singers till I had a daughter, because suddenly one day she told me, but don't you like any female singers? Because, I play music and, when she was very young, etc., etc. And it's all male. I didn't think about the fact that they're all male singers till she said it. And I felt really bad because it's pure sexism. Why didn't I have female singers growing up? I can't explain it. Then I spoke to a couple of my male friends and none of them had real female singers. I mean, the odd Madonna here and there or whatever, but that doesn't really count. The way you followed some male bands and whatever, there's no female presence. So what's the reason for that? For example, unanswered. So we'll start with point one. Manisha, please help us. Women trapped in a loop. Again, this is advertising for those listening, more than films or TV.
Yeah, so I think one is to just set the context, I think also to the stereotype inventory, and why advertising, needs to pay attention to it. I think one of the challenges that we have also is that a lot of times advertisers feel that, we are only reflecting society. But one of the things you have to remember is that advertising is so pervasive and it is so repetitive, right? That you see day in and day out over years and decades. And therefore the images that they show form, not just reflect society, but also either then reinforce certain things which are, perhaps not right. And I think that's that's the responsibility that advertising must acknowledge that it has, and therefore kind of, show this. So in a sense, what we've called in the report, the drip effect of advertising, which is over years, decades, categories, media that you see it, and why it has that. So as I said, one of the things that, is, as you said, in terms of the stereotype inventory, is that women who are caught, in a kind of loop, in terms of their lives, and, what are there seem to be these constant images, which are getting reinforced time and again. And a lot of it is actually, as you said, it's not necessarily intentional. What happens is that advertisers, typically when let's say there's a script, hearing, you will just say, okay, the woman opens, on the man reading a newspaper and his wife cutting vegetables on a...
Yeah, always.
And that has sometimes nothing to actually do with the brand or the story you're trying to tell. But it seems to be these default settings that we have in our minds that we don't even think about, which become problematic, not because a single ad does it, but because category after category, ad after ad, year after year, that's what happens. And I think that becomes, the issue. So I think that's what he's saying, that women seem to have also been caught up in this loop of certain depictions, which have very stubbornly made advertising their home. And only very few ads seem to be able to show women in certain breakaway kind of, depictions. Not because we don't want to, but because we're not thinking hard enough about those.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Please don't get angry. So is it incorrect to show women cutting the vegetables, even if majority of India, that is sort of the scenario, perhaps? I know the ad has some other story plot, as you said. The guy's reading the paper, the woman's cutting the vegetables, but it's not a fake sort of situation.
No, absolutely. You're right. That it's not as if stereotypes are not a reflection of what is happening in society. The question is saying that as advertisers, do we want to A, be progressive? B, is that the imagination that women see themselves as? I mean, is that how they would like to be depicted? Because the women also do several other things. And out of, let's say, the 30 things that you could show women doing, why do 9 out of 10 ads show women cutting vegetables? So it's not as if it's not true. But by showing only certain kind of images repeatedly, we are not reflecting the new journeys that women are, the new imaginations and the new ways in which they see themselves. They don't see themselves, even if they do that, they don't see themselves as vegetable cutting housewives. They see themselves as people who are going out on vacations, on travel, broadcasting themselves on social media, trying new things on YouTube. That's equally a part of their lives. And we don't see enough representation of those aspects. And that's where it becomes problematic. So it's not that cutting vegetables is not done by women and, therefore showing that is not problematic. But if that's the dominant, trope that is shown, then that's not a dominant part of women's lives anymore. And that's where I feel that advertising has a lot, it can actually make itself a lot more aspirational to the women it speaks with, because they are already finding those pathways into newer, more exciting things to do in their life.
Cool. So what you're saying is, why go back to the same old, same old? It's not whether it's right or wrong. I get that. My own wife told me just the other day, if you enter the kitchen, I'll kick you. Because ours is a very small kitchen. She thinks I'm a disruptive force when I try to open things and take things out and all that. Again, that's a very personal insight, unnecessarily told to you. Manisha, do not get upset. So let's get this clear. So what we're saying is that and what you're saying, this drip effect, if I understand correctly, for 30, 40 years, we always have the same stereotype background. Ad kuch bhi ho, ad ka position kuch bhi ho. There's got nothing to do with the backgroundness that's going on. Excuse my bad language skill. Which is this kind of thing, that she's making the bed, or she's taking the kids' cut thing and packing it and giving them the bartans in the bag, etc., etc. It's always that. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, I can tell you for sure that background, even if you're cutting to a beverage commercial, which has nothing to do with all this, it'll begin with that. So I get what you're saying. So you're saying that why just have that? And also the male stereotype is also the same. He's always reading the paper. He's always on a rocking chair. It's almost like he's relaxed and has nothing to do, and he's the king of the castle. That's also subliminal slightly, but I can see where you're coming from with that as well. So we've had 30, 40 years. Is that the drip effect? That this background thing that we have is always the same. and there's some disparity in position also because of that.
Absolutely. So it is a lot of the subliminal messaging that advertising. See, again, I don't think any of this is highly intended, right? I mean, no advertiser knowingly wants to show something which is not aspirational to its own consumers. But we end up doing that because we are just not thinking about it. We have, in our own minds, become blind to certain, parts of advertising. And if you honestly think of, even every 30-second commercial or a 10, or a 100cc ad, the amount of effort that is spent in designing every bit of it is huge, right? I mean, whether it's the advertiser, whether it's the agency, whether it's the casting directors, whether it's, the recorders, etc. Everyone is spending so much time and attention to it. And yet all of us miss, certain very obvious tropes. I mean, when it's pointed out to you, you hopefully cannot be blind to it anymore. And I think that's what the report is trying to do.
But let me ask you a slightly tough question. What should we have in the background then? I mean, give us some examples. For example, if we just switched it against each other, and she's reading the paper and he's cutting the vegetables, it just sounds like funny. It becomes a little inane and irreverent and all that. It doesn't really appear to be like choices have been made. So what would have been a progressive way to show a couple, which has got nothing to do with the ad that's the next 20 seconds? What would be a nice background setup in your mind?
So I think if you go back to what's actually happening in homes and what are the changes that are happening, I mean, you do see couples who are perhaps sitting and talking to each other, or let's say someone's reading, a newspaper at home and someone's watching the news on their mobile. I mean, that could be. So I think the idea of the study is also not to be prescriptive and say that do this and not that. I think it is to tell people that, look, you have always been doing things in a certain way, and that is no longer aspirational for women to see. And about 70 to 80% of the advertising in this country is trying to talk to women. And advertising has always prided itself on saying that, we create aspirations, and advertisings do create, destination, aspirational destinations for people to be. And the question is then, why should something like this creep in? Why can't we pay attention to it? And, again, things like saying that, do we say that men do nothing at home? And that's not true either. And is it that men can't do anything but, boil an egg or, make a cup of tea, and then is the whole household really going to be cheering that? No. So what is a normalized kind of interaction between, within a household? Will a mom never actually sit down? And why is she always shown in ads that she's running around while others in the ad are sitting around doing nothing? It's very likely that women
she's always wearing a sari, and like she's worked really hard on her outfit. Well, the man has a casual outfit on, which doesn't match sometimes. He's just got like a short pants and whatever, and she's in a sari in the kitchen. It just doesn't match at all.
So in fact, again, an interesting thing that you're pointing out is that women and their roles have always been determined through styling. Right? If there is a mother, she must look a certain way. If there is a young teenager in the house, she must look a certain way. And real women don't look like that all the time, right? So it's also that, there is no, there is almost a standardization of templates, which you say, acha, wo mother hogi kitchen mein, to XYZ, her hair will look like that, her face will look like this is the color of sari she will wear. So, and why does it need to be like that? And the thing is that none of this needs to be overly dramatized. I mean, it is just actually a normalization rather than a standardization. So that's the shift that, perhaps, we could make.
Variety. I think that's what we're talking about, variety. And that's what I think that was what was missing in the match, India-Pakistan match as well. Bowlers just didn't have enough variety. Shami had the same length all the time. Bumrah lost whatever little movement he was getting earlier on. And Chakrabarti seemed to have lost his leg break altogether by the end of the thing. Variety. I'm glad Manish brought up a cricket analogy, because I want people to understand what we're trying to say. And under our silly irreverence is a very important point to be made. I didn't think about that actually, that for 20 or 30 years, we have depicted, if you look at the background, the portrait of the ad, whatever the ad is, and message both funny hai, kabhi both, what do you call it, hard hitting hota hai, but it doesn't change the background. The background, the setting has remained the same, which is almost like, it's almost vulgar when you think about it, that there's progressiveness in the thought of the ad, the plot and what they're trying to say, something very progressive and a modern woman and blah, 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 blah. But the background shot, the picture, if you want, the tasveer in the back has not changed for 3 generations almost, which again, so like you said, it's not intent, but I don't know, we just need to be like slapped on the face a little bit and woken up a little bit, I guess, or more females in power in terms of advertising heads, agency heads, heads, as we say. Let's get to this. Male celebrity has coercive power over women in ad narratives. The male, I suppose, like the super film star, cricketer, etc. can persuade the women in the ad narratives? What are you suggesting here?
So if you see, I mean, this is a common trope which is used in a lot of advertising, that you have, male celebrities who walk into the house pretty much, in a very dominating kind of way, and then tell the woman that she's not doing a good job, and that they will instruct her and teach her how to do something correctly. And the woman is also, in that sense, very, naturally surrendering that space and allowing herself to be instructed. So again, the problem is not with a single ad. The problem happens because this becomes a trope that is used again and again. And again, if you see in ads, and this is one part of it. The other part of it is every time an ad breaks into what we call a product window, there is a voice of science or a voice of explanation that is explaining whether it is a detergent or a product which men have perhaps never seen in their life.
I immediately thought detergent when you mentioned those examples of the superstar coming in. Sorry, go on.
That it is the male voice that explains, and the women voices are used to create emotion. Why does that have to be? I mean, do we not have enough scientists and doctors in the country that are women? So it's again not saying that one is right versus the other is wrong, but there seems to be one dominant kind of depiction, which is not the case in real life.
So what is the research behind that? Why didn't they use a female film star or female superstar, whatever, to make the same suggestion to the middle class housewife about the detergent that they're carrying or whatever? Why did they go for the male? What is the story behind the logic behind that?
So it is, I think, which is what it's coming from, a certain inbuilt kind of conditioning where people in authority and people who can instruct are automatically, in our own minds, you think of men, right? And which is what is the issue, right? We're saying that there would have been nothing lost if it was, let's say, a woman celebrity doing it, or even the male celebrity, but doing it in a more empathetic way rather than this very hierarchical kind of, instructional way. But I think, which is the whole thing, that we have developed these blind spots, and these scripts in our own mind come so naturally. We just have a default setting where we think of scripts in this way.
But Manisha, maybe the copywriter was being exactly what you said, thinking out of the box and trying to change stereotypes. And so he's thinking ki agar man hai ya male hai, and coming to a female bastion and instructing, isn't that like something different? Where men are not involved with detergents and don't think about detergents. We have the Lalita effect for so many generations, and now suddenly, so in a sense, that's also going out of the box a little bit and changing the stereotypes. Maybe the portrayal was wrong, but the idea is not completely. Now I'm just thinking about it aloud. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, for example, if it showed, the male celebrity or let's say even the husband in the ad, and the wife having a conversation on, how they could make their clothes whiter, or, together doing something collaboratively, that is different from having an instructional, and kind of walking into her domain and making her small in her domain. I think that is what becomes problematic. And like I said, again, if it was an one-off ad that did that, it probably wouldn't matter. But when you see over 2 decades, that kind of trope being used regularly is where it becomes a problem. And like I said, I mean, combined with that, you see, men voiceovers explaining things, etc. So when you put it all together, there does seem to be.
I know what you're saying. They're talking down in a sense because they're telling you in a godlike way ki ye karna hai, wo karna hai, ye tarika hai, which perhaps is not his place to say. If it was more suggestive, it would be fine.
Yeah. See, in a sense, I mean, if you were to think of regular life, I mean, would she yield place to someone coming and telling her her toilet is not clean?
Not in my God.
Which is what I'm saying. And when we see these ads, also actually the funny thing is, Cyrus, that we don't think anything is wrong with them, right? And that is how normalized the.
Well, until you pointed it out, I know exactly what ads you're talking about, because these are the ones which have copied each other a lot. I'll just take detergent without brand, for example, and we've seen it. I'd never thought of it until you said this. I never thought of the fact that the guy is invading our space. I just thought, why are they using this guy for that? That I found a little odd. But other than that, I never thought the dynamic is wrong. He's coming like a big bully and trying to tell her what to do in her space, and she's giving in and happy to see him because he's famous or whatever. So you're right. Until you pointed it out, I haven't. You're destroying advertising for us. What are you doing, Manisha?
No, I'm not destroying it. I'm hopefully,
You're cleaning it up. You're cleaning it up.
So I think, again, to our mind, I think what is, the intent of this report is, see, we didn't want to leave this at an audit of advertising, and this is not what the intent is. I think the intent is for us to call out certain stereotypes that have been used, and to create a framework which is not a prescriptive framework, but I think a thought-provoking framework, which is saying that, is this something you want to think about? And, as you say that when it's pointed out, I would say that 9 out of 10 people would say, yeah, I mean, this was not even central to my ad. And, if this is becoming a trope that is being used so much, and all these are overused tropes in advertising. There's nothing unique or aspirational about them. So I would say that every good advertiser would say, yeah, I mean, I don't really need these, and let me think of something new actually. So
your point is well made. From a personal level, I'm thinking of my female relatives, and none of them will put up with any guy coming and tell them what to do on any level. Forget in the house, in terms of cleaning and saaf safai and all that. God no. My wife is a physically violent person. It's not a good thing at all. I better warn the celebrity in question. We have to take a break in a couple of minutes. So let's quickly try and get a couple of points which I underline. I must not forget to say. Well, when you say beauty is represented along very narrow definitions. Now, again, this is going back 30 years of advertising that we can remember. Can you just kind of compartmentalize that for us a little bit?
Yeah, so I think there are some, the moment we, for example, even in casting, right? I mean, if you were to cast women, and forget, sometimes they're not even in beauty ads, right? I mean, even if you're casting, let's say, a mother in, a food ad, or, someone in a gadget ad or a banking ad. I mean, I would say from a casting point of view, people tend to be styled similarly. There is a certain kind of look for different life stages or different characters that almost seems to be, expected. And again, real women are not like that. There is, enough variation and varieties when it comes to physicalities, when it comes to.
So you're seeing too much glamour in the mother role, in the type of.
So there is that stereotype, right? I mean, and women themselves, when we showed them some of these ads, they do say कि मतलब वो मैं kitchen में खाना बना रही हूँ तो मेरे my hair is also blow dried and my kitchen is spick and span, and I mean, where does that happen in real life? And so there is, I think, a need. I mean, obviously advertising has its own sense of aesthetics, but I think one must question whether that sense of aesthetics is broad enough to accommodate real women of today. So I think
the father can be as ugly as possible, but the mother has to be somewhat pretty-ish, but not too pretty, because that's also wrong. Yeah. I know.
So
I think I know what you're
saying. So that the casting of women characters and models in ads also tends to follow some very narrow ways in which we've depicted women over the years, and that's what we expect to see. And when we see that, it doesn't seem odd to us as well, right?
So these choices are made by men. Largely, is that so? You think if women are making the choice, we will get this better, more realistic, this sort of portrayal of the female character?
So I think some of these biases are present in both men and women. It's not as if men are the only ones with these biases, because I mean, even women have been fed off this depiction for years, right? So I wouldn't say that that's the only cause, but yes, I think certainly having a balance there could help create at least a greater variety of images and depictions, that could start to become more representative of what real life is about.
Wow. I think we need to form like a committee, like a correctional committee, with people like you obviously in charge, and whether they're male or female, you form that committee and understand that their thinking and judgments are more in line with yours and more holistic and realistic, both for whole of India, depending on the product is, etc. And have you'll have 10 different mother situations and 10 different ads, and none of them are equal to each other. I think that's one of the big problems. Now, when I think about it, a lot of them have the same look. No matter, as you said, you go from banking, insurance to car worth almost a crore to some simple, food, namak or something that's being sold in a bag. I mean, and it's all the same type of mother. The father changes a lot. He'll be wearing the Western clothes, or he'll be wearing something else, or he'll be sitting in a certain way, etc. Yeah, so. That's going to take some time. Let me become Prime Minister, Manisha. These are things I'm going to look into, along with parking. The one last thing before we go into the break, because I can't do everything, there's no time. You did mention a tendency to infantilize men and not normalize their partaking in domestic and emotional labors. I just thought that was so much like me. If my wife could see this, can you expand on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure. Again, one of the things we are seeing, Cyrus, in real life, and not just in big towns, but even in small cities and towns, that men are becoming more participative in household chores, in whether it's taking care of the kids, whether it is there is a partnership that you're seeing forming with their spouses. I mean, if you see a lot of people on social media, and even from small towns, women who are kind of broadcasting themselves. I mean, you will see the men are holding the camera. Sometimes the family comes on the screen, whether it's in-laws, whether it's men, kind of all partaking in the woman's own journey. And what seems to be happening in advertising is that, again, the women, let's say the woman turns up a 7-course meal, and of course, there is praise for it. But much greater praise is given to men for boiling water. And what is that doing? Instead of then showing that this is a normal thing, which is easy to do and men can do, you are actually making it seem like it is such a big thing, which it is not even in real life. I mean, if my husband were to, make tea for me, I'm not going to kind of be so grateful to him and kind of
well done.
It's normal, right? So I think that's what we're saying, that and by showing this as almost as if you would clap for a child who has learned to walk, that is the kind of that is the attention given to something which is a very normal household chore. So in doing so, we are also that's the dilemma, and that's the paradox, that in showing men getting into the kitchen, the brands are actually trying to be progressive, right? But by infantilizing them, you're actually deepening the stereotype, saying that men are not capable of this.
It's a tough call. Because I do like the idea that of them being stupid in the kitchen, it's a little appealing to me on one level, but I totally get what you're saying as well, because you're just taking away the credibility of the whole movement after some time, when they're just buffoons, and then you're clapping for them for behaving like buffoons. I don't know. Can I be split decision on this one? Because like I said, I still enjoy that. Because during the pandemic, from personal experience and from my friends' experience, we were like buffoons, like trying to find things and help in the house, in the kitchen, cleaning, etc. and all that. The mistakes that were made, if I could have shot them and showed you, you'd see that is not completely off the mark. But yeah, they shouldn't be given prizes for obviously basic stuff. We have to take the break because I have to go all the way to the car. Where are you, Manisha? In Bombay, no?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm
and working from home?
No, today I'm in the office.
Oh, excellent! Welcome back, G. I hope the mails were sent first. Yeah, we'll change that. So we'll bring in Silvery now, also known as Antariksh, who's an architect by profession and a comedian by night, but of course no work for 2 years. And
Hello.
As he comes in, I'll just have a bite of this orange.
Fine, all good. Hi, Manisha. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Ow, my arm. I think I injured it today morning. My family just doesn't get it. Here's what happened, Manisha ji. I was in the gym doing my business. I was lifting weights, doing push-ups, cycling, bench pressing, the works. Of course, I don't know why I'm doing all of them together simultaneously. I suppose that's a little silly. But I'm on the bench press on my fifth lift, 400 pounds. And I never go lower. So I'm lifting it. And then my daughter walks in all excited and she says, "Dad, have you heard?" And I said, "Heard what?" Because I was still, focusing on my weights and benching. And she says, "Now get Kotak home loans at only 6.5% interest." That was my expression. And obviously I went berserk completely, and the weights fell out of my hand, and because I was just taken by surprise. And then you have that boomerang effect, which goes to one side and all the weights from the other side they could go off the bar and they hit people in the gym. 2 or 3 people were badly injured. I don't want to mention that, but these things happen, and I apologize if they're watching this program, which they shouldn't be. But I have to blame my daughter. I have to, because you have to be careful when you tell people news like this, yaar. बताने से पहले कृपया ध्यान रखें. But 6.5%, this is truly incredible. So before going to the hospital with the people who got injured, I told the driver, Kotak Mahindra Bank pe rokna 2 seconds ke liye. Because it's very important to take advantage of this situation ASAP. And please check out my new podcast, Come Home to Kotak. It's out now on IVM Podcast app and website and on all other streaming platforms. I don't know, Manisha's getting a little now, slowly, the ice is breaking and she's ready to, ek do gali, I think, to sunna padega, Silvery ji. What do you think? Crossing the line.
No.
I have a question for Manisha, ma'am. So, ma'am, without taking any names though, but
you don't have to call me ma'am, please.
Okay, sorry.
So why
Manisha.
Stop with this ma'am.
Sorry. All right. Manisha. All right.
Yes.
So, what happens is that you can tell that of late, recently, some brands have been trying to break the mold. They have been trying to be more conscious about the kind of tropes that they portray in their ads and what have you. But then they end up getting some kind of vitriolic trolling or feedback from the masses. So that's kind of aggressive, is it not? Because then brands would be kind of forced to go back to their old previous stereotypes of all the things that we've just been talking about.
So I think, a lot of brands have successfully broken away from stereotypes without also getting trolled. So I think brands definitely, I think there is a degree of hypersensitivity in the environment, and brands need to be cognizant of that. But I think, at least as far as this study is concerned, and what we are suggesting is actually, there is in fact no dramatic shift needed. What is needed is actually a very subtle, kind of shift. And I think the other thing to remember is that, ads that show women in progressive light, when you speak with women themselves, for them, the idea of what is progressive and is a collective idea. For women, across the board, the idea of progression is not about leaving your loved ones behind. It is about being able to all move together in a way that her desires and aspirations are also accommodated in that progress. So she wishes, that her male siblings, for example, would support her, when she wants to, let's say, go out in the evening, or that she did not have to fight for small freedoms, that should be accorded to her, that she's, that are due to her. So why does that have to be there after, or even in advertising when it's depicted that, it has to be that every win has to be won after a long battle? Why can't we again normalize some of these wins? Why can't we show women as having certain easy access to certain freedoms? Why does it always have to be a dramatic storytelling of the problems and the opposition that she has to face, and in the end, you spend 2 seconds saying, okay, she's now over this thing. So I think, I think there is a huge room for brands to play in the progressive field. Some of it, I would say is, I think the kind of things that are getting into controversies are not necessarily, the kind of things that even the report is recommending, or, a lot of brands do. I mean, you would find that happening. It's still happening by exception. So I think at a very broad level, if the depictions are what consumers today and women today find aspirational, I don't think a lot of those ads have gotten into too much trouble.
Yeah, but also I think deep down the problem is that very often the ad is fine, and it punches up and all that, and the female has the last word very often, and you show them in different light, and it's interesting and creative and innovative and all that, but the background, as you mentioned at the beginning, is not. So it's almost like we're pretending to have progressed because we are not able to do the real progress. We're just doing very clearly the right things are shown, but we're forgetting about the background and the backdrop and all that. And I think until Manisha pointed it out, maybe we didn't even think about it. Again, very scary. This is why I like to be stupid. The more intelligent you become, the more sensitized you are to everything, and it hurts more. Just be stupid and you feel nothing. That's why we don't care about beggars coming, hitting the door and asking for money while the foreigners go berserk. They don't know what it's like. So we have to just stay away. Just be ignorant to all this. Silver, do you understand what two people are telling you here? Two wise people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, beta. Very good. That's all. As long as one person improves in India, that's all we need. Yeah.
Cool.
By the way, do you know where Mr. Gosavi is? Is he in Powai?
No, I had a call with him yesterday, and he's on the run. He wouldn't let me know where he was. Hopefully he meets me in the next couple of days or something. I can say, like,
the good thing is, like all criminals today, he has an Insta account. So no matter how big your criminal,
he has a post hiding from the cops.
I'm in Switzerland outside Lausanne Hotel. Whatever.
Sorry, I have one more question for Manisha, if I can.
Yes, please.
So again, forgive me for my ignorance, ma'am. Sorry, Manisha, but how can you please tell us a little bit more about ASCI as a body and
ASCI.
ASCI as a body and the kind of work it has done in the past, like other kind of studies maybe that it has been a part of.
Sure. So ASCI, as you know, is the Advertising Standards Council of India. Was set up in 1985 by a group of people from the advertising fraternity who felt that it was time for the industry to put certain boundaries and guardrails around itself, because that of course helps consumers, but it also protects honest advertisers, right? So it has that dual benefit of as someone who understands advertising, the industry is in that sense well placed to say what are the boundaries it must not cross, right? So because advertising is a subjective field, it is a creative field, you cannot have extremely prescriptive rules and regulations and laws that govern every single ad. And therefore I think these boundaries are kind of important. So ASCI was formed in 1985, so about 36 years ago, and has essentially one of the big things that we do is that we receive complaints from consumers. We take up complaints ourselves. We receive complaints, in fact, even sometimes from the government. In fact, I believe once we had a Supreme Court judge who wrote in to us, about a complaint that he had against a particular ad. So we receive these complaints. Once we get the complaints, we write to the advertiser asking them to kind of, give their point of view. And then that is taken to a complaints council. We look at the ad, we look at the explanation given by the advertiser. Sometimes we have technical experts, when we have a lot of ads that promise, skin is 2 times clearer, or, this eliminates 99% germs. So we have people like microbiologists, dermatologists, a lot of ologists sitting on our expert panel, who then look at the evidence which is coming in from, technical labs, etc. All of that stuff is done. And then we give a recommendation whether we feel that, the ad was fine, or whether it needs to be withdrawn, modified, etc. So then the advertiser is given some time to make those changes, if the ad is in violation of the ASCII code. So that's what we do broadly. But so in a sense, we are known as the advertising watchdogs or the advertising police. But I think what we also want to do is also, how do you help advertisers get it right? So we definitely will catch them when they get it wrong, but how do we also help them get it right? And which is why studies like the Gender Next study that we are doing, that becomes important, because it tells people what is a better way to advertise, what is a more responsible way to advertise. So those aspects become important. We also have something called the advertising advice, which is pre-production. I mean, people spend crores of rupees in creating ads, and can we actually make those ads more responsible, and can we, showcase a little bit more responsible behavior when it comes to advertising, and therefore it's something which, doesn't have to be corrected, when it's wrong, but it's something which, which can be created better. So I think that's really the effort of ASCII, which is saying,
so prevention rather than cure is what we're saying.
Yeah. So if we have, absolutely. So, there will always be those cases which, ASCII will kind of adjudicate and look at. But equally, we find that a lot of the problems that we find in advertising are quite easily corrected. Let's say you don't have, you've created a certain claim saying that, I've eliminated so much percent bacteria, etc. Sometimes you are needed to say what bacteria you've eliminated, or what is that result based on. You say that consumers like my brand better. Is that based on your own thinking, or is that actually based on an independent survey? I mean, those things need to be called out. So sometimes there are very minor corrections that can be made, which makes advertising much more honest. And therefore, it's a great idea to do it before you spend the crores of rupees in making ads, and then you have to correct it in 10 languages and 20 edits later. So.
Manish, you've got to be careful with the whip as well, because, I'm wondering if you all have destroyed the Banyan ad. There were so many more Banyan ads when I was growing up, and now I find that there's Deluxe, there's Dollar, but where is Rupa? Rupa is gone, one of my most beautiful products. So I wonder, sometimes you have to be a little careful if you're very strict with these guys, and we lose out on some of the best copy ever, which made no sense, was a Banyan ad. There was absolutely no connection between what was happening and the Banyan, which would come at the end, except the guy was wearing it, doing whatever he was doing. So I love the Banyan ads. So please don't take that away from us, Manisha. Please give us a chance.
No, Cyrus, in fact, no, absolutely. And in fact, one of the things that ASCII always tries to balance out is that, that there is a need for creativity. I mean, that's what advertising is about. There is a need for messages that are not literal. There is a need for messages that are exaggerated. Provide a certain. Yeah, sometimes. So see. The exaggeration is fine so long as the consumer also knows that there is an exaggeration, right? I mean, if the consumer starts to believe that is actually true, then you can fall into trouble. But obvious exaggerations intended to kind of, sell something in an interesting way. Someone who is self-regulation in advertising, we don't want to douse creativity. I mean, that is, an integral part of the industry and a part of the industry we all love. I mean, the worst critics of advertising enjoys some advertising, so that's a balance that we are constantly trying to, make sure that we don't impinge on creativity.
That's great to hear, because we have to allow some bizarre stuff on also from time to time, because sometimes that really works. The disconnect is also a connect sometimes. Fair enough. Okay, listen, let's get the AMAs. We've got about 10 minutes left in the show. I'm sure people want to ask questions who are from the business as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Or associated. Follow me at Instagram and Twitter on Bored Brocha. I'm so bored, I need your help. I need your love. I need your touch. Okay, just follow me.
This first one comes in from Tarun Kaushik. He says, do you think advertisements can bring more change in the society than films/TV series? Or don't you think even movies and TV should be bringing in more contemporary issues?
No, absolutely. So I think all media representations, are important, and each of them have their own roles. In fact, we do see cinema in some way, because it is, I think, in our mental model, something that we go to see and perhaps, not always execute in our real lives, that I think cinema sometimes can have actually more liberties. And you do see more nuanced characters, more individual characters, more women in cinema showing, doing things that perhaps you would not see as much in advertising. So certainly, I think each of these different media have their own, personalities, as it were, their own boundaries of freedom of depiction, and every media must try and do what it can, and not necessarily as a CSR activity in that sense, saying hey, this is our duty to show it, but because this is what women are about today, and women are progressing in a certain way, and therefore showing things which are real, which feel aspirational, which feel motivational, I think is just good business as well.
Also, I don't know why some of the most famous ads didn't become films. They could have easily become films, just as you look at famous people becoming biopics or whatever. So, for me, I like the Ramesh Suresh. I won't take the brand name for whatever reason, because Manisha doesn't want any association. But the Ramesh Suresh ads were very funny and nice, and I thought it would make very good. They could have had a full-length story to them, and it would still work because the two characters are so endearing. So I was just thinking that so many ads over the years which were successful, and maybe if well written, could have lasted for a 2-hour show, which would explain then the context of the lady, the outfit she's wearing, with her background. With that length of time, you'll be able to have some sort of to and fro about all these things, as again just quickly just suggesting this is her, this is him, and this is the product, and that's it. You know what I mean? I'm just justifying in some way, if they need to, what is happening in a certain background setting, etc., etc. And there were so many ads that I think, at the top of my mind, that could have perhaps become in films. Have they? No, they haven't. No, I don't think we have.
No, I guess not. So, but you're right. I get what you're saying. You're saying like the Ramesh Suresh ad could have become like a Dumb and Dumber kind of a movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is that. It is that concept. And I was just thinking it would play out full length. Why will it not? Suppose you just have a plot, like they had in Dumb and Dumber. They're searching for a suitcase, whatever, and it just continues in the same vein because the characters are.
Isn't that very rare anyway? Like that ads become into full length feature films.
I know I can't think of any. We'll have to ask our audience to help us. I can't recall. But from my generation, the 90s, growing up and all, my recall of ads is very strong. Now I don't know. There's so many more ads because you have internet versus TV, and there's so many different ads also in the same brand, etc., etc. So I'm not sure. But for us, there was just so many brands, and we knew all of them, and we knew all the songs and the jingles and the ads, and we still can sing them. I've just done an event, in fact, about 6 months ago before the second pandemic, but there were people in their 40s, and so they all got these ads, and we played the slogans and had questions attached to them and the jingles. And people were, it was amazing how much the recall was. 20 years later, we're talking about 90s and 25 years later, perfect recall. Lines were remembered, slogans were remembered. It was fabulous. Remember? Happiness is here again. Thumbs up. I can't say brands. Okay.
All right.
Let's get a couple more.
Yeah. Next one comes in from Aditya SK. He says, I have noticed a serious drop in quality of ads recently. This is even more obvious in the US. Why are advertisers targeting people quantitatively rather than qualitatively?
Is that a fair thing?
Yeah,
is that a fair thing?
I think it's an interesting question. I would not say, I would say that this is a fair point. I think what is happening is that a lot of brands and products are now selling on performance. And those attributes are becoming, are getting more highlighted. So, earlier, if you just had a soap ad, which was just generally selling on, makes you look good, etc. I mean, today, those same soap ads will promise you X% protection against germs or 5% increase in beauty, versus. So it is in that sense very, advertising is coming around to certain hard facts being presented. One can argue that, does that take away? It's a different, so I would definitely say the nature of advertising is seen, but every once in a while you will see an ad which, has actually none of this, and, we connect to it emotionally. And I think that is part of the magic of advertising, right? That it has to work hard, but then sometimes what connects is really emotional ads.
How do they get these figures? Especially the odd numbers, like 11% safer, 38%. I mean, you said you have a body is sitting over them, the ologists and all that. How do you get these figures?
So these are, tests conducted through standard protocol testing and stuff like that. And, we have, so many professors from IIT who, are on our panel of experts. These are clearly things that they understand. Log reduction in viral load, what is nutritious, and, how is A2 ghee different from regular ghee. So these are all things that you learn actually if you're associated with ASCI as well.
I feel this is the bullying of the wise, because they are IIT and their intellectual capability is much above us. They just tell us this is what it is. We can't catch up with them, can't understand the thinking, and that's it, and we have to accept it. I'm not happy with this. I want to investigate this one independently when I have the time. I'll leave it for now. Silvery, next one.
Yep. All right. Next one comes in from Prithvi. He says, does ASCI coordinate with the regulatory body of TV serials? Since this is all knitted together for the viewers.
Yeah, so ASCI's remit is really advertising. However, we work quite closely with the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, and other ministries as well. So Ministry of Ayush for Ayurvedic products, FSSAI for food products, etc. So we do understand that, regulators, government regulators are also, of course, very important. And, we are in that sense working together to make sure that advertising is regulated. So different bodies have different powers and jurisdictions. ASCI's remit really is advertising. However, like I said, we work closely with the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, but not really on content, not on television content, but on advertising.
Yeah, and TV serials have their own issues. Let's not even get into that. Women with full makeup, sleeping in the bed, etc. That just always one of my favorites. More makeup than a woman who's at an event. It just makes no sense. And full glittering earrings. Who sleeps with the necklace and everything is on? It's amazing. Anyway, can we last one quickly?
Sure. This one comes in from PC. He says, how about those indirect ads for booze? Why is that? Why can't we just advertise it openly?
Yeah, he's got a point. No? Manisha, we all know what we're talking about here. What's the point of that?
Yeah, so in this case, what happens is that the advertising of liquor and tobacco is prohibited by the government. Okay, so there is a law against advertising these. I think where ASCI comes in is that, and also please remember that surrogate advertising is illegal in India. So these are laws, and ASCI has to operate within the laws of the country. So what we need to make sure is that something which is a brand extension of liquor or tobacco products has an independent business and standing of its own, so that the brand extension is a genuine one. I think that's where ASCI comes in. But this is something which, honestly is beyond ASCI's remit. It is what the government allows or doesn't allow.
Johnny Walker CDs, I don't want to mention any brand.
Soda.
Soda, the famous name.
So some of these are legitimate businesses. And, when a complaint like this comes from ASCI, we ask them.
They sell 8 copies of it. So come on.
No. So if they sell 8 copies of it, they will have to withdraw the ad. So that's precisely what ASCI does, is that, we call in for the business. So if you say that you're selling CDs, please show us what is the sale of the CD. And there are certain guidelines. If you sell 8 CDs, you can certainly not meet those guidelines. So the fact that it's a genuine kind of, business is what ASCI will establish based on data. So they have to send in their sales data, their distribution data, and things like that. And also, there are certain other... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's not on ASCI's doorstep. The blame is on the government. Let's be totally honest. If you have booze, you have booze. You can't have booze and then get all moral on me and have all these rules and regulations and have all. It's just ridiculous. But you're still selling it. You're still earning tax from it and lots. So I just find that too hypocritical. Again, ASCI's off the hook. It's we have to ASCI this question of the government. And
ASCI, not ASCI.
ASCI. Sorry, I have to have my ASCI.
One small thing, Manisha. How long can this process of approval take from ASCI? If I submit an ad for approval, how long does it usually take?
So are you talking of an approval which is pre-production approval?
Okay, there are approvals required at different stages.
Or are you talking of when a complaint comes in?
I'm talking about just to be able to air the ad. There's an approval level required, right? Just to be able to air the ad.
So it's not mandatory, it's voluntary. And it is not in that sense a pre-approval, it is a due diligence. So if you feel that, you would rather, it's in a sense like an insurance, it's mitigating the risk, which is saying that, could your ad be in violation of the ASCI guideline? And therefore you can come into ASCI, and depending on the kind of ad and the nature of the technical data that needs to be submitted, it can be as less as 3 days to a week.
Okay, but if you don't do it, ASCI can now come after you and say, hey, there's complaints.
But we we will come after you irrespective if your ad is misleading. So it has nothing to do with, so we don't give a pre-approval just because you've come to us.
Okay.
You may or may not take, it's an advisory service, right? I mean, for example, if you go to a lawyer and the lawyer says do X, but you end up doing Y, then the lawyer cannot be responsible if, someone comes and catches you later. So for us, that's the key thing, that it's not pre-approval, but it's like due diligence. You have a check.
It's not anticipatory bail is what you're saying. So people think of it as a ticket out of the whole thing. Just get the, once ASCI gives the approval, you're off the hook completely. But it's not that.
No,
and so you act on complaints, right? Let's just understand that last thing. Complaints that are coming in, you'll act on that, right? Depending on what the issue is, whatever the issue is. The issue can be anything, right?
Yeah, anything to do with the content of the advertising is the issue that we will take. So anything in the content which is either perceived to be misleading, untruthful, offensive, harmful,
against the sentiments,
unfair, those are the kind of things that we will look at. So sentiments is one thing, but also, again, if someone, like I said, is claiming something in their ad, can that product actually deliver it? So those are the kind of complaints that sometimes come in from consumers or consumer organizations.
Yeah, I do feel that not enough Parsi is being used in ads, but I suppose this is not the right forum to bring that up. Maybe we can take it the next time we have you on, Manisha. But in the interest of you going back to work and doing something with your time other than wasting it on our silly show, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm sure we should get you on when we do a Cock and Bull, another version of the show, where we can look at just advertising. We'll do a little more research and come and ask you questions about this ad and that ad. And perhaps you could take us through why this and that happened in certain cases.
Sure. Yeah, would be happy to do so.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. So bye, Manisha. Bye, Silvery.
Yeah.
I'm off to find my destiny.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a great day.
Yes,
bye, guys.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, catch us on any of the podcasting apps, please. We beg you, we need you. Send us your questions on Twitter, on Cyrus Says In. Or you can email us, even if you're not female, on whatcyrussays@gmail.com.
Hey everybody, it's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On the Storytellers and Storysellers podcast, Vineet talks to the youngest gaming creator, Ujjwal Chaurasia. He shares his content strategy and how he went from his first 1,000 subscribers to 20 million on YouTube. On Simplify, Shriketh is back after 2 years in Kuala Lumpur. The gang ask him about the differences between the two countries, work-wise, culture-wise, and infrastructure-wise. On the Edges and Sledges Cricket podcast, Varun, DJ, and Ashwin discuss CSK winning its 4th IPL title, the beginning of the T20 World Cup, and India's squad. Monica Halan has a new book, Let's Talk Money. You've worked hard for it, now make it work for you. She joins Anupam on Pesa Vesa and they discuss the ins and outs of the book. And on All Things Policy, Aditya Parikh talks to Serbian journalist and geopolitical analyst Nikola Mikovic about the impending hostilities between Serbia and Kosovo. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, Intel, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
From uncensored and unfiltered chats with the who's who of the entertainment industry, I, Siddharth Kannan, bring you a very heartcake chat show called Candid Kannan. Tune in every Friday on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts.